We start this morning with this program note. Our conversation with the chair of the Michigan Republican Party was recorded hours before a court order required new districts be drawn for some state House and Senate seats, as well as U.S. House seats. The order also requires a special election for the state Senate. So that ruling means our conversation about districts, particularly about there being no state Senate races, may or may not reflect the final decision of the courts on appeal. Consequently, we have omitted that part of our conversation to avoid confusion. Now, this morning's program of To the Point. Good morning and welcome to the Point. Over the next 2 weeks, we're going to be taking a look at the 2020 elections and two people, the chairman of the Michigan Democratic Party and the chairman of the Michigan Republican Party. They both want to win elections, but in very different ways. We start with Laura Cox, the chairman of the Michigan Republican Party. Let's start by talking about you a little bit, because you've done a lot in your career before becoming the chairman of the Republican Party here in the state of Michigan, most recently serving as the appropriations chair over in the House. And for people who don't know, in the House of Representatives, being the chair of appropriations means you have a big chunk of the activity that goes on and all of the budgeting. So you have kind of jumped from one big job with a lot of fires to put out to another big job with a lot of fires to put out, as I would describe it. But tell me about your past. How did you get here?
Well, I grew up in Adrian, Michigan, in Lenawee County, and went to Michigan State University, go Green. And from there, I was a criminal justice major, and right out of college, I got my master's degree in criminal justice at Michigan State as well. And then I became an ICE agent in Detroit, Michigan. So I was centered at the Special Agent in Charge office. We call it the SAC Detroit. And I served there for 13 years. And, I put away drug dealers. I worked on an undercover project for about 18 months. It was a really great job. It was a difficult job for a mom of many young children. So when I was pregnant with my fourth child, Mike and I and my husband, we decided, you know what, for our family, it was a good fit that I stayed home and kind of took care of the little ones when they were little. And from there, I got very active in grassroots politics. And Mike ran for Attorney General, and so that was great success. And I got very active in the local level. So I was the chair of our county party, I was the treasurer, I was the chair of our district committee, I served on state committee, and I just loved politics and decided when I was 40, hey, let me throw my hat in the ring. So I did that, and I ran for Wayne County Commissioner, and I served there for 10 years in the minority, and for 8 of those years I was the lone Republican on the commission, and I really enjoyed my time. It was rough and tumble politics, but I enjoyed it, and I learned, I think, in probably the best place to learn politics, probably outside of Chicago, would be Wayne County politics. And so I served there, and then when the House seat was open because of term limits, I ran for the state House seat in Livonia, and I served there for 4 years, and as you're talking about, 2 years as the first female chair of the House Appropriations Committee, and I loved that job. It was a great job.
That brings a lot of varied background to where we are now.
Yeah.
That's the chairman of the state Republican Party. And as we move into 2020, it is, I think, fair to say this could be one of the most interesting and one of the most challenged election cycles that I will have covered, and I won't tell you how many I've covered. There's a lot going on there. So we're going to talk about some of the specifics, but let's just talk in general. What does the chairman of the state party do? Because we know that politics, for better or worse, and many would say worse, has a huge appetite for money. And fundraising is obviously part of what the party does, but there's a lot more. What does the state chair do?
Well, basically, I am right now, because we don't have a governor, I am the leader of the party. We don't have a senator. So I am the leader of the party. So basically, I get a team together and we execute a successful, I hope, and I believe will happen, a successful 2020 campaign up and down the ballot for Republicans across the state. So we're going to focus on the state house, make sure that we maintain and expand the House majority. We think that's very important. We want to flip that U.S. Senate seat, and And we also want to make sure that we obviously get our president reelected. So those are the things that we're going to focus on from the top and the bottom. And then, of course, any local municipal races that we want to play in that we're interested in, we'll obviously talk about those influences as well. So I have to get the base energized. I think the president's going to help a lot with that in this cycle. And also work to make sure that we get the tools, everything, the skills, everything that folks need to get successfully elected in Michigan in their different areas. That's one of the jobs I have to do. So of course I have to raise money. I have to raise money to make sure that we can do the things that we need to do. So right now, that's what I'm focusing right now, is to kind of build the base of the money that we need to make sure that we're successful in our political arm, as well as just getting out the vote on election day services, and also supporting my state party. We have our first state committee meeting this weekend. So I'm looking forward to meeting with our party leaders to talk about our vision and what we want to accomplish in 2020.
In talking to chairmans past, one of the things that they talk about as both a priority and sometimes a bit of a challenge is getting the party together, because there are a lot of different views, there are a lot of different folks, and of course there are primary races, which depending on your view are healthy for the party to have lots of people involved, but sometimes can be challenging for the winner going forward if there's a lot of conversation negatively in a primary. How big of a challenge is it to kind of get everybody together and then keep everybody together when there are a lot of different views?
Well, some might call it herding cats. I think one of my goals is to make sure that we talk about what we as a party want to accomplish. And when you set out the goals for the party members and how they will benefit from that, and my thing is, listen, you want a Republican to win over a Democrat, and these are the reasons why. And when I can do that with our party leadership and our activists and folks, just your friends and your neighbors that you're talking to about why they should vote for a candidate, when we give people the tools and talk about that and stay laser focused, I think we'll be successful. So that's one of the things that I kind of focus on, and I've started off from the very get-go talk about unifying. And I talk to my folks and say, listen, we are a service organization, we the state party. We service our activists and we service our candidates to make sure that they're successful. And we need to support them however we can do best and to make sure that they're successful. So that's kind of how I'm kind of guiding our party.
Talk just a little bit, I don't want to get too far in the weeds because a lot of people that are watching this morning don't participate either in the Republican Party or Democratic Party in terms of going to the meetings, but some do. And there's an interesting structure because you're the chairman of the state party, but there are also congressional chairmen and other people. Who participates, for example, in a committee meeting?
In the state committee meeting? So you have elected state committee folks. They come from each congressional district. So each congressional district has people that are voted to state committee, and they serve on committees throughout the state committee. And then there are also people that the district chairs also participate. So you have this group of people from across the state that have been elected in their local congressional district to take part in our state party. And we love that. You get everybody's different ideas, viewpoints. Some people have elected Republicans, some don't. Some are frustrated because they should and they don't now, and they want to learn from their mistakes and try to make sure that they're successful in 2020. And those are the kind of folks that we're going to get everybody together in a room and talk about learning from each other. We don't want to reinvent the wheel, but we want to be successful in 2020. And I think the collaboration that we will have at state committee will give us the successes that we need in 2020.
Let's talk a little bit about some of what you want to achieve. And let's start with the State House. And I start there for a couple of different reasons. This is the last time that these State House districts will be voted on. That's important for a couple of reasons. One is it's a big effort, and obviously I think Republicans lost 5 seats in the last cycle.
We did.
And so you'll be looking to try to pick some of those up and maybe expand on that, because that's the game that parties play. They want to try to expand their majorities or lessen their minorities. But you're going to put a lot of time and a lot of effort into districts that will not exist 2 years from now. That's a reality that happens every 10 years. But does that give you pause, or do you just have to go after them the way they are?
No, it doesn't give me pause. Actually, my goal and my marching orders to folks is like, listen, we need a strong farm team, because in 2022, when the lines are redrawn, we don't know what we're going to ask those specific candidates or elected officials to do in the next cycle in 2022. So we need people to, work hard, make sure they establish themselves as a good candidate, that they work their base, and that they are successful, so that in 2022, when the lines are redrawn, I might be talking to them saying, listen, I know you were going to maybe run for re-election for the state house, but I might need you to run for the state senate because the lines have been redrawn and we don't have a candidate here, or we need this person to do something different. So I always talk about how important it is to have successes in the county commission seats, in the local, when you're talking about, county boards and city boards, like we need people to be strong candidates as Republicans because they're our farm team, especially in the state house when you have term limits. And those are the kind of folks that you look to as you have cycling over of congressional seats, that you have a good leader. You want to talk to them about maybe potentially running for Congress. So we need a strong farm team. So it's very, very important in 2020.
What is the process like if somebody comes to maybe their congressional chair, or they just make it known that they want to run for office? Is there some kind of immediate support, or do you just say, okay, get involved? I mean, because what we see because of term limits, we see not all, but some candidates who have never run for anything before in their lives. Now, I should also point out, a lot of folks come from city and county government, and so that certainly is a way that they get involved. But there are some cases where somebody just says, enough, Lansing, I want to go. And so how do you manage that with candidates that are coming into the cycle?
It's a good question. The House and the Senate caucus both do recruitment themselves to talk to different potential candidates and talk about what is involved in being a candidate. And that's part of my role as a state party as well, is to make sure we're educating potential candidates, getting people that are loving politics, loving getting involved, want to have a voice, want to speak out for their community. We talk to them about what is involved in running a race, whatever race you decide to run, and give them the skills, the support, the training. We offer all those kinds of things to these potential candidates and hope that we will get some folks to actually want to get involved, because like you said, with term limits, you're always constantly looking forward. So you're not only looking, like I said, I'm not only looking at 2020 and investing in 2020, but I already know that I have to make sure that we have a good solid footing for 2022. And that's what politics is all about, because it's numbers. And in the state house, you need 56 votes to be the majority, and we always want to keep that majority. So that's the goal, is always to look out, because if you're short-sighted, that's not going to serve you well. And when you're talking to leaders, you want them to always think about what they can do next. And part of term limits does make a candidate think about that, but how they can actually offer a different perspective of leadership to their communities and get them excited and want to do that at a different level. And that's something that the state party, of course, is supposed to do as well.
One of the things you said that interests me about when you're talking to these potential candidates is you try to prepare them for what it takes to run. Now, you have a unique perspective because you've been involved in statewide campaigns. You've been involved in campaigns for state house, state senate. I'm going to make a guess, and I've actually heard this from candidates, that they were not prepared for the amount of time, the amount of effort, the sheer physical investment of knocking doors, particularly in house races. When you sign up to do this, if you do it right, it's a really big job.
It is. It's an important job, but there are people that love campaigning and maybe don't love legislating, and then there are people that love legislating and campaigning. I mean, that's the best person, of course, because they have to understand that there's a means to the ends. Like, you have to do something to get this job. And people don't understand sometimes the cyclical nature of it, because once you're elected, you're still running again. Like, you have to have wins, you have to have things you can talk to voters about, even if you don't have a win, but you're fighting for something. And so it's really important that candidates understand, media. They have to understand the way the government works. They have to understand who the leaders are that they need to talk to. They have to raise money. They have to talk to voters to actually get the vote, not just hope that they read their mail. So all those things, the training that we provide for them and the support we provide for them so that they are successful. Getting signs out, getting sign locations. And it's funny you say that, because the other day I was at a store locally, and a guy said to me, "Laura, I want to run for office. I don't want to do it now, but I want to do it in like 4 years when my son's this age, and then I have more free time. I said, I would love, he would be a great leader. He's a good civic leader in the sense that he supports his community. And so I kind of gave him just a couple just tips to start doing to lay the groundwork, the foundation for him to be successful in 4 years when he wants to run. And just simple things like meet with the local elected officials to kind of just talk to them about what their job is about, go to meetings and just watch it when you have time, just to kind of understand how the rhythm of that local government works. Just those kinds of little tips. And then the other stuff, he can learn later when he's more serious about and the timing is right.
Our conversation with the chairman of the Michigan Republican Party continues next. To the Point. Welcome back to the Point. The chairman of the Michigan Republican Party and the chairman of the Michigan Democratic Party would probably both agree that President Trump will be a factor in the 2020 elections. They just couldn't agree on what kind of a factor. You'll hear part of that in this segment, but first, House races. Do you participate in all 110 or contend where you can win?
Yeah, obviously we want to make sure we field a candidate in every seat. I think that's really important. And as local activists, grassroots activists, they want somebody challenging. They want somebody to have an opponent. That's very important to them. And I believe the other party believes the same way, that they want to get a candidate in there. Just in general, just so you have, when you're knocking a door, you can say, I have an opponent, and it's Joe Blow, right, and this is what he stands for, and this is what I stand for, and this is why you should vote for me. So that makes life a lot better, and that's a goal of ours as well. But more importantly, you prioritize your candidate. We have tier 1, tier 2, A, B, whatever you want to call it. And we talk about which ones, in 2016, when you're looking at presidential race, which ones, were successful in 2016, and do we have a chance to win those back if we lost them in 18? Those kinds of things. So yeah, we definitely tier things. Strategy changes as the wind blows every day, and as things happen in Lansing, as your candidates that are, on the ground, things may change, unfortunately, and you might have to change and reprioritize things. But, I feel that we're going to have a good strategy. We have a really good political team. Polling plays a big role in that. And like I said, as the president, as he continues to perform really well in Michigan, that will help our House candidates. And that is really, really important when you have a strong top of the ticket. It just brings everybody up.
Let's talk about Congress. Republicans lost 2 House seats in the last cycle, is that right?
We did.
So what do you do 2 years later? Because again, conventional wisdom would say the easiest time to beat an incumbent is when they're a freshman.
Right, absolutely. And those are 2 seats I've made no secret of. One is the 11th district, which is my seat. That's where I live, and I want to make sure that we have a Republican back in that seat. And of course, the 8th district, which was Congressman Bishop's seat, and we want to flip that back as well. And we're actively talking with potential candidates to make sure that we have a good run at it. So those are 2 seats that we're definitely targeting. And of course, we want to protect our incumbency. That's very, very important. I know that in DC, the House caucus has been actively recruiting potential candidates, and they're working really hard. And we feel that that U.S. Senate seat can be flipped. We feel really good about it with the right candidate. I believe Gary Peters is beatable. He is the least known senator in the country, in the entire country. Some people say that might be good. I say that's bad because Michigan doesn't really know what Senator Peters has done for them. So I think that that's a flippable seat. My husband beat him, and I think that he's beatable again. And so we're looking to flip that seat. I think it would be wonderful for the voters in Michigan to have a Republican. It'd be nice to have at least one of the 2 senators be a Republican. So we're looking for that, and I know that Leader McConnell is very interested as well. He was in the state last week talking to folks about how important it would be to get a Republican here in Michigan.
That would be not dissimilar from the trend that Donald Trump as a candidate bucked here in the state by winning Michigan for the first time since '88. It was 1994 last time a Republican won a U.S. Senate seat in the state, right?
Yeah, I think you're right on that.
So it's been a while. So you've got trends also that you have to keep in mind, but also you might be able to throw some of those out because that's what happened in 2016.
Yeah.
Conventional wisdom did not rule the day.
Yeah.
The path to winning did, in fact, have to go through the electoral states that those of us who watch such things, the numbers are the numbers, but it did not seem likely for many people watching that race in 2016 that President Trump was going to be able to win both Florida and Ohio and Pennsylvania and Wisconsin and Michigan.
Yeah.
So if the map looks more or less like it did.
Yeah.
Arizona may be in play. Florida is always in play. Ohio may not be. If you've got Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan still figures prominently in there. You said earlier that if you have somebody strong at the top, it pulls them up. The president has had 2 years of investigation. As you and I sit here, there is still conversation on Capitol Hill about what to do with the Mueller report. I talked with one Democratic member of the congressional delegation this past week. He is cognizant of the political reality of impeachment, but on the other hand, says he and others have some real concerns, some real questions that they have to work through before they decide what to do. If these investigations continue, impeachment or not, is the president playing from a strong hand when you go into 2020?
Absolutely. At least in Michigan, I would argue that he's doing a great job in Michigan. You know, our economy is humming. You know, if you read the paper today, Ford is investing $500 million on the electric truck. We have, I think it's called Wago, which is the autonomous vehicles. They're going to be built here in Michigan. Those kinds of investments happen from good economic policies, and Michigan is benefiting from that. FCA, I mean, we are having jobs. Every day we're getting wonderful hits about how we're job creators are coming to Michigan or investing in Michigan, and it's so very important for us. I mean, people, families, businesses, they look at how it affects them personally, and I believe that the president's policies have successes, and he has a track record of his policies that have benefited families and businesses throughout the state of Michigan, and he has a track record to point to when he's talking about it with folks as he's campaigning around the country, and specifically in Michigan. I mean, the vice president's here today to talk about his policies and how it affects our families here in Michigan. I think that's really important, and as a Republican Party chair, I'm saying, listen, these are the things that you can talk to your friends, your neighbors, your coworkers, your family. Talk to them about why they need to re-elect our president. And Michigan is definitely on his radar.
And quickly, as our last question, the question about the economy and who gets credit for the economy is always part of the election. But his opponents are going to be talking about character. They're going to be talking about these reports. They're going to be talking about the investigations. And that is going to be a large part of the narrative. Does that hurt the president?
No, absolutely not. They wasted $25 to $35 million. Nobody can decide the number on that investigation, which sounds like it was politically motivated, which is absolutely wrong for the federal government to do an investigation that is politically motivated. Absolutely wrong. I come from criminal justice. That's wrong. But let me tell you something. Get through the noise. Talk about how your life is affected, how your family's doing. When people look at that, that's how they're going to vote. They're going to vote how they're affected personally. And I think that's what's important to people. That's why people elected the president. He's kind of a no muss, no fuss guy. He says what he thinks, says what he believes. People like that. They don't like the fakeness, the falseness. They really like how genuine he is. Even if it's good, bad, or indifferent, he's genuine. And people like that. And he's given great deliverables for Michigan. So I think he's going to get reelected. And I want to make sure I'm part of that.
I'm back with a final thought next to the point. Next week, a very different look at the 2020 race and the Trump impact with the Michigan Democratic Party Chairman, LaVora Barnes. I hope you'll join us next and every Sunday morning for To the Point.